and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Good afternoon. I am Garth Mashant, host of News and Views with the Rabbi. And today we have a special show on the housing crisis in New York City, specifically in Queens County. And today we have two special guests, Mr. Gene Sassin, chair of the Queens chapter of the New York Communities for Change, and Pamela Hazel, community activist and also a member of the Community for Change. So without further ado, Mr. Sassin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Millennium family. Afternoon, Rabbi.
Yes.
I'm glad to see you again.
Yes.
We just wanted to introduce those who may not be familiar with New York Communities for Change. We are a community advocacy group where if you have an issue and you're fighting alone against City Hall or powers that be, you may not have strength by yourself to get things done. But Scripture tells us that a cord made of many strands is not easily broken. And so New York Communities for Change provides the network and organizing to provide others in your situation, in like-minded situations, to come together, and together we can build strength and make change and push those that need to be pushed to do the right thing.
Right, and to you, Ms. Pamela Hazel.
I am Pamela Hazel. As you heard the rabbi said, I have been an advocate for my community for many, many years, and also I'm a member of Community for Change. And I'm here today with the rabbi, and I thank him for allowing me to be here to tell my story about the pain and suffering that many people, including a family member of mine, experiencing for unfair practices by tenants and also on unfair and abusive orders from a particular judge and maybe other judges.
Okay, so Mrs. Sasson, could you go more into details, because a lot of people have problems with evictions, and some landlords have problem with getting tenants out of their homes, right? So could you explain, like, for example, people have two family homes, right, which they rent out and they can't get the tenant out. So could you explain?
Right. So the trend has been, especially lately, once we've been, I guess, starting to come out of the foreclosure crisis, that a lot of single family homes have been torn down, torn into two family. And then the selling point is to say, you can buy this home and then your tenant will pay the mortgage for you, right? So people are getting caught up into the rich game of having the 2 or 3 family home and that your tenants are going to cover the mortgage for you, right? And that becomes a trap because life happens, right? And so that rent that you were dependent on doesn't come up. Mm-hmm. You hear plenty about how landlords harass tenants and how, you always hear about, of course, the bad seeds, right? Turn off the hot water, harassing, music and loud. Well, we're especially concerned with the single family, the homeowner who's renting the apartment in the house, right? And so, although we have protections for tenants like good cause eviction and legal aid help, right, to help defend tenants, right? Mm-hmm. These decisions also tend to put landlords in a bind because they still have these mortgages to cover, right? Especially the homeowner. We're not talking about corporate, buildings and NYCHA, who has their own set of problems and things to overcome that they need to improve on greatly, right? And they've been stressed by the city council and government as well. So NYCHA, we're not talking about NYCHA, but we're talking about the mom and pop, right? Who are just trying to make ends meet. And so when we have tenants who start abusing, and that's what we're talking about, abusing the system, right? Because in the foreclosure fight, all right, I don't know where I'm going over time, but when we especially in the foreclosure fight, we learn that judges just couldn't change the mortgage contract because that's been specifically written into law by our Congress and our electeds, right? That judges don't have the power to change the mortgage. So if you signed whatever the paper says, right, unless the bank decides to catch you a break, right, you're just stuck with that, right? The judges are limited to what they can do as far as a mortgage. They can do anything else, but they can't change. They can't argue on a mortgage contract unless there has been a breach of the contract. And all the bank has to do is give you the money. After that, it's all up to you.
Right.
So the judge can't say that a tenant needs time to get out, so they're free of paying the rent, but then they can't tell the bank because of that you have to cut the homeowner a break because that money has to come from somewhere.
Right, and that has led to a lot of people losing their homes in foreclosure, right? So we're gonna get back to that topic because that's a serious issue when it comes to home ownership in the city, where people are losing their homes because of foreclosure, because the city put tenants in these homes and they're not paying up the bill, and sometimes they got bad tenants who don't take care of the people's apartments. And we're going to go to Miss Pamela because you have a situation with your sister, right?
Yes, I have a big situation. And as I said before, I'm a community activist and I help everyone. And now I'm faced with a problem, all right, with my sister, and she's been abused. And as far as I'm concerned, she's been abused not only by the tenant, but also by an abusive judge who is allowing the tenant to terrorize my sister, despite all the evidence that my sister has put forward. Number one, let me just give you a little background. A young, strong, about 39 years old, Black man came to my sister to rent her upstairs apartment. And he paid for a month or two. He also had a subsidy, and everything was going fine until after maybe the third month, he decided that he was not paying rent. So right there, a conflict began, because now my sister have to depend on part of that money, of course, to pay her mortgage. So now she's in a bind where she cannot get the money from him, but at the same time, she has to get the money somewhere or get foreclosed. And that's how it all started. My sister, if I didn't mention, I don't remember, she's 75 years old. She only walks with an aid of a cane. And this abuse continued on and on and on. And even though, and what the client was doing purposely, he will do things like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Like one time she called me because she thought rain was falling, only to find out that when she get up to investigate and find out if the rain was falling, no. He flooded the bathroom upstairs, and therefore the bathroom downstairs flood. All the evidence is there from the police department. Another thing that the tenant used to do purposely, he said that he was going to burn the house down, and he attempted many times. Again, we have evidence from the fire department. Even that was not enough for the terrorist judge to take the abusive tenant out of the apartment. All right, so number one, the tenant was not paying any rent. Number two, he was flooding the apartment. Number three, he was attempting to burn down the house. Number four, which I believe is one of the most important one, he did not have a lease. The lease had expired. And in all of that, this abusive judge, Judge David J. Bryan, he allowed the tenant to go back. in the apartment. And because of that, we, the whole family, we are suffering. And it doesn't matter what we say. It doesn't matter. The judge has given him indefinite right to live there. And the reason why I say indefinite, he gave him an order to stay in the apartment with no end date. So that is part of my story.
Yes, and I want to say that this is part of the overall problem that the city of New York is not monitoring these events, because most of the people who rent out to these 2-family homes are under the city program CD.
They might have some kind of voucher.
Yeah, voucher system, right?
Section 8 or
right,
something like that.
And in some of them, it's a partial voucher, and the tenant is responsible for the other part of the voucher. And a lot of people have been calling me to complain. Landlord says, well, the tenant, how do we get the tenant out of there? Because they owe us all this back month when we only get the money from the city, and they're not paying their remaining share. So the landlord is stuck, right? And when they go to the court system, like she said, they can't get no relief, you know? There's also another scam going on in the city. Stealing the people's deeds who are senior citizens.
Yes.
Right? It happened to me. I'm just telling my story in the sense that one company from Pennsylvania claimed that they had gotten my house through foreclosure, when in actuality what they did was they saw that we were senior citizens, so they went and changed the deed that it was their house and went to court, and we got evicted. I got thrown out by the city sheriff. Right, came and threw us out because they went to court. And right now we're dealing with it thanks to the Queens County District Attorney, Melinda Katz, is going after these people because there is actual fraud against senior citizens in the city. Sure. Their houses are being stolen from them. So I understand that part about the rent part. That's another part. So could you explain what is the city doing to correct the situation? Because in most instances, the tenants are being given to these landlords by the city.
Right. So well, just to touch on the deed theft, I'm sorry to hear about that. Yes. But it's not an unusual story.
Yes.
It's actually there's actually a task force about deed theft in the state right now, and there's legislation that's been passed and proposed about making the penalties for doing these frauds even harsher. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the safeguards for identity theft and for protecting our seniors is behind what the technology and the greed of the crooks, the criminals who are perpetrating these frauds. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to catch up, and NYCC has been doing workshops about monitoring the deeds and trying to protect your property that you work all your life on. Someone just comes in. It's scary how easy it is to just change some names on a piece of paper, and then you have to prove that it's really yours and that you didn't know these people from Vegas who just signed on some paperwork. Now about the tenant situation. Yeah. So the voucher program, I guess, sends you the tenants, right? And because you're still getting the city money, right, but not the balance that the tenant is supposed to be chipping in, then it's kind of, you've gotten some of your pay. So it kind of gets muddy legally because you're not getting zero rent, right? Mm-hmm. You've gotten some of it. So unfortunately, it's one of those things that has to drag through legally. Involve your electeds in this. Don't be afraid to involve your city council and even your state senator, right? And come to groups like ours who exist in all the 5 boroughs, New People for Change. There's also Mutual Housing Association of New York. They can help navigate you through some of the legal troubles that come up in these situations. We know we can find you an arbitrator. We can, again, find you legal aid. So there's ways to fight it and resolve it.
Right.
Unfortunately, I found some stories where landlords are reaching points where we're actually having murders involved. In the New York Post, there was a case in November 23 where one landlord, David Daniels, killed killed his tenants and his girlfriends, and said it was stress. Right, the tenants weren't paying, and there were disputes. Right here, not far, I guess, from our studios here, there was a Christopher Samaro was killed by his landlord. According to the Daily News, there was the tenants had filed, no hot water and repair, and were withholding partial rent. And in September, eviction papers were filed by the landlord. And in November, there was a confrontation, and Christopher Samaro lost his life. And the investigation is still ongoing. There's a lot of he said, she said, and that's unfortunately what gets caught up in a lot of he said, she said. But these laws do not permit the destruction of property. Right? They do not permit you to just not pay rent. Right? So, the fact that judges are ignoring the fire department, ignoring proof, right, and want you to have wear a wire like some TV show and catch someone on tape threatening your life, right? That's just unreasonable, and I just can't believe that's
right. On that note, we're gonna go back to go on that, but we're gonna take a break at this point, and we'll be right back.
Are you taking a break?
Hello viewers, you are watching Millennium News 24. America and global villages Saint America independence built by immigrants, manufacturers, roads, highways, educations, healthcare, IT, scientists, space, business development to all thousands of multimedia and all major social media platforms and news network in America. Millennium News 24, one of truthfully news networks in America and global news organizations. Please watch, follow and subscribe. We are in iOS and Android devices, Roku, Amazon, Apple devices, all smart TV, globally Horizon satellite, social media Millennium News 24, Millennium TV 24. Website www.millenniumnews24.com and www.millenniumtv24.com. Thank you.
We are back in at this point. We're going to go to Miss Hazel to get into that, because obviously judges are allowing tenants to destroy people's property and not giving the owner the right, especially when they're being threatened. So in the case that he mentioned, 2 cases, the landlord went and killed these families that was doing that. I know your sister is not going to do that, but it's a stress. Could you go into that, please?
Well, look, there are a lot of things that people would not believe, but everything that I am saying about this terrorist judge, Judge David J. Bryan, is true and could be proven. And I believe that a lot of time these judges behave so badly and become terrorists and allowed abuse, particularly of the elderly, is because they are immune from being held accountable, immune from making sound decisions. And in this particular case, Judge David J. Bryan is unfit. And the reason why I say he's unfit to serve is because he is unable to make a logical decision when he has all the evidence of abuse. He has all the evidence, as I said before, from the police department, from the fire department. So all he could say is that, the tenants have rights. But in the society that we live, we always hear the mantra that everyone has rights. So I asked the question, where does the landlord the rights come in? Where does my sister right come in? And I am yet to for the judge David Bryan to prove where the tenant has a right to destroy. Because while he is saying the tenant has rights, he's not providing any evidence that the tenant has a right to destroy, despite the evidence. I'm going to repeat myself, from the police department, the fire department, my sister. This judge has destroyed my family. He's a terrorist and he needs to be removed. All right. He has caused my sister so many visits to the emergency room that I don't have the time to explain. I am suffering with a medical problem because of this situation caused by this unfair, abusive, terrorist judge that is called Judge David J. Bryan, because he believes he is immune, and he probably is immune from all the abuse to the public. And I need something to be done about it.
Well, on that note, shouldn't we get some legislation in place from the city council or from the state legislature to correct these abuses? Because in the past, for example, you had squatters, right, who came in and took over an apartment, right? And the legislature went and passed a law that says, because you used to have a 30-day right. Explain to the audience. So if 30 days, right, you could do at least and show you have a bill, you're in the apartment for 30 days, you have squatters' rights. Right. So they changed the law so that can't happen anymore.
So it wasn't squatters' rights. What happened was that they were a lot of times these squatters would come and say, "Oh, I have a lease. I'm here legally," and then it was up to the homeowner to prove that no, I don't know these people, right? They're not tenants, and so but they would have to go through the tenant system, and it was a civil matter, not criminal. Right. So New York State just passed. I mean, Georgia did it first. Unfortunately, we weren't leading that time, but New York State just passed, right, these squatters laws that now turn it into a criminal offense. And now that they can move faster, the police can come and remove people from trespassing as opposed to just calling it a civil matter. That's what happens when the police show up and say, well, there's nothing we can do, right? It's a civil matter, right, not criminal. Now squatting is a criminal matter, right? And they can get arrested and removed, forcibly removed. So we're on top of that. But, unfortunately, and as your sister situation and so many others, that, to appeal an illogical decision, right, is costly, right? Your sister's 75 years old, right? Yes. And so the funds are not there to just keep having lawyers, right, to file for appeals, right? Finding free, low-cost, affordable legal help for the appeal, right, the higher up you go, is harder and harder. Right. And so regular people just don't have access to resources like that. So if you can, you should be able to prove that, hey, this was an illogical decision, or this decision has put us in a catch-22, right? We're caught between a rock and a hard place. We need to be able to appeal this decision, right? Get like a stay, right, on that judgment, or an emergency motion, right? And then be able to get that appeal, because this is in real time, right? This guy is still in the apartment. This guy is still abusing, right? And and she still has to deal with the flooding, and just the fact that, again, she's not getting any income, and on her 75-year-old self. Right.
Now, there's a big homeless problem in New York City, right? And there's a lot of apartments available. Oh, sure. Especially these two-family homes, right? But the city is not doing a good enough job to screen the people who are coming into these apartments. So a lot of landlords now don't want to rent to the people who are homeless.
Right, right.
How do we address that?
That leaves homeowners to deal with realtors who will run, credit checks on people, but they're charging a fee, right?
Yes.
They're not doing it. They're running a business too. We talked about NYCHA, who
New York City Housing Authority.
Right. Sorry, New York City Housing Authority, right?
Yes.
Has like 100, like 6,000, 7,000 apartments
Vacant.
Oh, vacant,
Yes.
right? And they've been vacant for like a year because they have to prep the apartment after the last person left, and they're just derelict and late in getting to it. Right. And they're saying, well, it has to be safe. We can't just move people in. It's like, well, how long does it take you? It doesn't take you a year and a half to fix up an apartment, right? We should do a better job of screening for the voucher process. It should just be like an application, but maybe more of an interview,
Yes.
especially if you're moving to someone's house as opposed to a large scale building, right? Because now we're like really cohabitating with another family.
Right. So in the instance of your sister, that tenant came through the city program, correct?
Yes, he came through
Right.
one of the city programs.
Right. So that's my point. How the city should not just put somebody in somebody's house; they should be monitoring it. So what would you say about that?
Well, they have part of the responsibility, right?
Yes.
But every time my sister will call the agency, all right, responsible for giving her the subsidy,
Yes.
they would tell her, look, we are not taking care of that problem. All we are doing is providing the subsidy, right? Providing
Yes.
the subsidy.
Right.
However, it became a time when the tenant refused. He bluntly refused to go and recertify for the landlord to get the subsidy. So now my sister was not getting the rent from the tenant, and now she's not getting the subsidy. So one of the times that they went to court, my sister asked the judge, well, at least if you're telling him to stay there indefinitely, don't you think that I have a right for you to order him? Like you are ordering me, the landlord, to let him stay there. Why can't you order him to go and recertify? And this abusive terrorism judge, David J. Bryan, said no. So purposely, he is abusing my sister. He is using his power for evil and wickedness, and he does not expect a reaction like my reaction. He expects me to be a happy camper. Well, terrorist judge David J. Bryan, you have destroyed my family. You make our life a living hell, and therefore we are not happy. And I want to know why you are immune from any kind of accountability. And I also want to add, because they were touching on this 30 days. Well, the tenant moved out at some point, not totally moved out, but he was absent. And then my sister started counting 30 days because someone told her after 30 days, he's not eligible to come back. So after 30 days, 35 days, my sister took his belongings, which was some clothes in a box, and take it into storage, and then she had to pay for it. Well, when he went to court, he said, the tenant said it was illegal. Guess what? The judge told my sister, who is 75 years old, cannot even walk, have medical problems, partly because of the judge. He told my sister to go to the storage, take out the boxes with the clothes, bring it back into the apartment and let him in. But the judge didn't finish there. I have evidence where the judge, through the lawyer, said that if the landlord dare to lock him out, he, the tenant, has a right to go to a locksmith and break the lock. Do you believe me? I'm telling the truth.
Well, you know, I do a lot of community work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I try to help tenants
Sure.
to prevent some
Sure,
eviction,
absolutely.
right?
Sure, yeah.
But sometimes I help landlords because I know that they are struggling to pay their mortgage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there was this one instance, I need to tell you this, right? The one landlord asked me, this guy had owned three homes, right? Where he lived, and next door he had a house, right? And he rented it out to this guy, right? So we were serving him papers. He asked me to go serve the papers, right? So he opened the door because he's the owner and let me in. The guy, what you doing in my house, right? And he threatened me. I'm gonna get out of my house. And then he said, I got a gun, I'm gonna shoot you, right? Just because we were serving him papers, right? And want to threaten the landlord. Right. So this guy is in the city program, you know what I mean? And the landlord is not getting more money because the program stopped. But after the program stopped, how do you get those people out of the home? You know what I mean? And that's the problem. And then that guy was destroying the place, breaking the bathroom, putting a hole in the wall, destroying the man's property. So this is something that's ongoing, and I'm glad you brought it to your attention because these landlords are suffering. You don't want people to lose their homes because of foreclosure. And there too much foreclosure. New York City, especially in Queens County, had the highest foreclosure in the nation at one point, right? And some of it is because of this. Plus also, one of the people don't know this, one of the biggest foreclosures in this city is not the banks. It's the city of New York. Let me explain. If you owe a water bill, right?
Yeah.
I had people come to me complaining I had to work it out for them. They owe $5,000 in water bill.
Right.
The city goes to court and put a lien on the house, right? Yeah. And when they put a lien on the house, there's these companies that are in Virginia and Delaware, and they buy the lien from the city, and the city makes money. They want their money, right? So they make the money, and then that company goes to the court and foreclose
on the house.
On the house.
Yeah.
So because you owe a $5,000 water bill, just because the city want their money, your house is foreclosed. The bank didn't move on foreclosing the property. So in New York City, you see all these boarded up houses. It's the city of New York that's been foreclosing on these people's property by selling it. Or even if you own some taxes. It might not have to be much, right?
No.
Can you go into that?
So what you're talking about is called the tax lien sale.
Yes.
Right? And so if you fall behind on your taxes, you owe whatever the amount is you owe on your property tax, right? Then the city puts you into this pot called, they put a lien on your house, just like the lien on your car, right? Or your mortgage is a lien on you, right? If you don't pay your mortgage, that's the bank taking it back. So the city puts a lien on your property for the property tax, right? You fall in default, right? But instead of the city pushing you to pay them, they auction off your debt to a third party. Chase used to have the contract for the water bill, for collecting the water leak. It's with Chase Bank.
Yes.
Right. But now, so any bunch of investors bid on tax lien sales. You see these guys on YouTube now, they're talking about, great income, right, collecting on these tax liens. Well, that's your neighbors they're talking about, right? So these tax lien sales get auctioned off for pennies on the dollar, right? The city doesn't get the whole tax bill back. They just get money on the dollar, right? And then that company fights to get that bill paid off, right? So they're just bill collectors, basically.
Right.
And then if you don't, and so it's up to them to contact you in a reasonable way for you to negotiate with them, right? Maybe you don't get that letter in the mail. Maybe they call an old phone number.
Yes.
How hard do they really chase you down to get that money back?
Right.
Right. So they auction, then they start auctioning off. They foreclose on you, and now they own the property.
And then you get evicted.
Right. Because they want to tear down your place and turn it into a 2-3 family
Right.
And then that cycle continues.
Right. So with your sister's situation, because he's not getting the payments and stuff like that, she might have a problem paying the taxes, right? Which is high, the real estate taxes, or the water bill.
She has a lot of financial problems, and I believe that is part of the reason that she was in the emergency room so many times, and this pain and suffering transferred to me. I myself was hospitalized, all because not only the laws. You see, a lot of time people say in the case of the judge, oh well, it's not me, it's not the judge, it's the law. Well, again, I ask Mr. Judge, show me the law that say a tenant supposed to destroy a home. The fire department evidence, yes, I'm repeating myself. The police report, you got Judge David J. Bryan, and you did nothing about it because you are evil and you're using all kind of maneuvers of the law to say it's not you, but it's you. You have the power to do good and you have the power to do evil. You choose to do evil because you are evil and you using your power to create public suffering. Also, I want to add, with this judge, he is not telling the tenant for whatever the reason that what he should do. Nobody's telling my sister what her rights are. We have to do research. It becomes a full-time job. And I have so many places that my family went to get help with zero results. This is because we were trying every which way, because now we are involved in pain and suffering. Now it's not only financial pain, it's physical pain, psychological pain, and all the other pains that you could think about. And I just want to list a few of the places that we went to get help. I was sent to the DA's office in Queens, Melinda Katz's office. I spoke for maybe 45 minutes to the person in charge of that situation. His name is Anthony Gay. After speaking to him, because you have to go from the beginning for people to understand in order for them to help you. After I went through everything that I just said, he said, oh, sorry, there is nothing we can do. I even told him that someone had told me about the squatters law that was just signed. He said it does not apply to the situation. I told him, I said, look, the guy has been out of the house for more than 30 days. He does not have a lease. He said it's nothing that he can do about it. We also went to, there is a place in Far Rockaway against abuse of the elderly. We went to them. Again, we tell the story. We also told them that the tenant had threatened my sister's life. They say, oh, it's nothing we can do about it because your sister have to wear some kind of mechanism to prove that he said that. That may sound good, right? But why don't they at least investigate the situation? No one is investigating. No one is doing anything about the situation. And so we are left in this dilemma, in this so-called society we live in, where everyone has rights.
Right, and now we take the last break. We're going to go on break, and we'll be right back.
Hello viewers, you are watching Millennium News 24. America and global villages seen to America independence built by immigrants, manufacturers, roads, highways, educations, healthcare, IT, scientists, space business development to all thousands of multimedia and all major social media platforms and news network in America. Millennium News 24, one of truthfully news networks in America and global news organizations. Please watch, follow and subscribe. We are in iOS and Android devices, Roku, Amazon, Apple devices, all smart TV, globally Horizon satellite, social media Millennium News 24, Millennium TV 24. Website www.millenniumnews24.com and www.millenniumtv24.com. Thank you.
But no, it's good that you
All
mentioned
right, we are
that.
back, and we're going to go to your panel for this thing about the tax lien, because that's important for people to understand that in New York City, a lot of people lose their homes because of a tax lien or a water bill lien. So go ahead.
Right. Well, so people perish for lack of knowledge, right?
Yes.
So we, NYCC, New York Communities for Change, is also part of a coalition, citywide coalition that's been fighting to abolish the tax lien sale, right? To keep people on homes and keep our communities intact, our neighborhoods intact. So I'm glad to let people know that there's been a change, right? Mayor Adams didn't want to, but again, people together pushed it, got the city council behind it, and now there's alternatives to being put on the tax lien sale. But the city's not going to come and tell you about it. You have to be active in seeking out a community group or maybe your local land trust. Come in.
Go ahead. I think
yes.
we have to wrap up. This is the final thing, but just to let people know that we need to get together with a group like yours. And could you give your information out so that people can contact and we'll close it?
All right. Well, you can look up at New York Communities for Change.org, and you'll find the contacts for your local borough chapter.
Yes.
Okay.
One final short.
In final analysis, the tenant moved out, and the reason why he moved out because the destruction that he caused, the apartment become inhabitable. So he moved out. And one of the things I also want to mention that I believe is very important, my family went to the commissioner, Joseph Deluck, and we contacted him and they asked for an email. That email was sent on December 10th last year, 2024. We are yet to hear from the commissioner concerning this abuse of Judge David J. Bryan.
Commissioner of?
The commissioner, he is the commissioner of the judicial conduct.
Right.
Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the city is in a crisis when it comes to housing. And as you can see some of the issues, we need to really address that by going to your city council to change it, by going to the state legislature to change it. And once we do that, we can have a better way and less homelessness, because that leads to a lot of homelessness.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Right? So with that, I say goodbye. Thank you very much.
Thank you, viewers.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you could. Yeah, so you could take off.
So, Mr. Nar.
Sorry, sir.
So, Mr. Nar, how was it?
Bad.
It was bad.
On the short